Paris on Christmas Eve was a city of dreams. The streets sparkled under a canopy of lights, each corner adorned with festive decorations. A fresh layer of snow blanketed the cobblestones, softening the sharp edges of the world. Angelina Jolie sat in the back of her sleek black limousine, the faint hum of the engine accompanying the rhythmic tapping of her assistant's tablet. Her white coat, an elegant contrast to her dark hair, was draped neatly around her shoulders. She was reviewing the final notes for her speech at the prestigious Voices of Humanity Gala, an event dedicated to honoring global advocates for children's rights. Angelina, a centerpiece of the evening, was both excited and weary. Her life was a whirlwind of causes, commitments, and celebrity obligations. As the car turned onto the Rue Royale, a glimmer of movement caught her eye. Outside, the Place de la Concorde was alive with activity. A Christmas market stretched across the square, its glowing stalls and bustling crowds a vivid display of holiday cheer. Despite the cold, families wandered hand in hand, sipping mulled wine and nibbling on roasted chestnuts. Angelina's gaze lingered. The market seemed worlds away from the controlled environment of her limousine and the glittering gala waiting for her. She felt an urge, a pull to step out of her bubble and into the energy of the city. "Pull over," she said suddenly. Her assistant looked up, startled. "Miss Jolie, we're on a tight schedule. The organizers. I'll only be a few minutes." Angelina interrupted, her tone leaving no room for argument. "I want to see the market." The chauffeur glanced in the rearview mirror, seeking confirmation. At her nod, he smoothly pulled the limousine to the curb. Her assistant sighed, hurriedly texting updates to the event staff. Angelina stepped out, the cold air biting her cheeks. For a moment, she simply stood, taking in the sights and sounds of the market. Vendors called out, offering handmade ornaments, pastries, and toys. Children laughed as they chased each other around the towering Christmas tree in the center of the square. It was a world untouched by the pressures of fame, a world Angelina found herself craving more and more. Two of her bodyguards flanked her, blending into the crowd as she began to walk. She kept her head low, her white coat drawing glances but not immediate recognition. For a brief moment, she felt anonymous, part of the ebb and flow of ordinary life. As Angelina wandered through the market, a small figure caught her attention. A girl, no older than 10, weaved gracefully through the crowd, her tattered red Santa outfit bright against the snowy backdrop. She clutched a wicker basket brimming with cakes and candies, her dark hair tucked under a slightly askew Santa hat. "Fresh cakes, homemade candies," the girl called out, her voice clear and sweet, though it carried a faint tremor. "Please buy, only a little to make your Christmas bright." Angelina stopped in her tracks, drawn to the child's earnestness. The girl's hands were red from the cold, her thin frame wrapped in a too large coat beneath the Santa costume. There was something in her wide, dark eyes, an innocence tinged with a shadow of worry. The girl noticed Angelina watching her and hesitated. After a brief moment, she approached, her movements tentative but determined. "Would you like to buy a cake, miss?" she asked, holding up a small bundle wrapped in wax paper. "It's carrot cake, very fresh." Angelina crouched slightly to meet the girl's gaze. "You're out here all alone?" she asked gently. The girl hesitated, glancing nervously over her shoulder before returning her attention to Angelina. "I'm not alone," she said quickly. "My father is here." Angelina's brows furrowed. The girl's answer felt rehearsed, her gaze flickering with unease. "What's your name?" Angelina asked. "Sophia," the girl replied softly. "It's nice to meet you." "Sophia," Angelina said, her tone warm. She reached into her purse and pulled out a bill that far exceeded the price of the cake. "I'll take one." Sophia's eyes widened at the amount. For a moment, her rehearsed composure cracked, and pure joy lit up her face. "Thank you, miss," she exclaimed, handing over the cake. But before Angelina could say anything more, a sharp voice cut through the air. "Sophia." The warmth in Sophia's expression vanished, replaced by fear. She clutched her basket tightly as a man approached, his movements purposeful and menacing. He was tall and unkempt, his coat fraying at the edges. His eyes were bloodshot, his expression hard and unforgiving. "What are you doing wasting time?" the man demanded. Ignoring Angelina entirely, he grabbed Sophia's arm, his grip visibly tight. "Get moving." Sophia winced but didn't protest. She cast a quick, pleading glance at Angelina before lowering her gaze. "Excuse me," Angelina said, stepping forward. Her voice was calm but firm. "Is everything all right here?" The man turned to her, his sneer deepening as he took in her elegant appearance. "Who are you to ask?" he snapped. "This is none of your business." Angelina held his gaze, undeterred. "I make it my business when a child looks scared." The man let out a harsh laugh. "You don't know what you're talking about. Lady, walk away." Angelina's bodyguards stepped closer, their presence imposing. The man noticed and hesitated, his sneer faltering. With a final tug on Sophia's arm, he muttered, "Let's go," and began dragging her away. Sophia glanced back at Angelina, her eyes wide with fear and something else, a silent plea. Angelina's heart clenched. "Wait," she called out, but the man and Sophia disappeared into the crowd before she could stop them. Angelina stood frozen, the weight of the brief encounter settling over her. The joy of the market had vanished, replaced by a gnawing sense of urgency. She turned to her bodyguards. "Follow them," she ordered, discreetly. "I want to know where they're going." Her guards nodded and slipped into the crowd. Angelina remained behind, her mind racing. Sophia's trembling hands, her fearful glance, the man's aggressive behavior, it all pointed to something far darker than a simple family squabble. "Miss Jolie," her assistant said, hurrying to her side, "we need to leave the gala." "Cancel it," Angelina said sharply. "I'm not leaving until I know she's safe." Her assistant's protests fell on deaf ears. Angelina's focus was entirely on Sophia. This was no longer a detour, it was a mission. Angelina paced at the edge of the market, the cold seeping through her boots as her thoughts raced. Her bodyguards had disappeared into the crowd, following the man and Sophia. Time seemed to stretch, the festive lights of the market a stark contrast to the dark situation unraveling before her. "Miss Jolie, this could be dangerous," her assistant said nervously, her phone clutched tightly in one hand. "We should leave this to the authorities." Angelina turned to her, her eyes blazing with determination. "There's no time to wait. That child is in danger. If we leave, she might not make it through the night." Before her assistant could respond, one of her bodyguards reappeared. He was slightly out of breath but calm. "They've gone into an alley on the far side of the market," he reported. "It leads to a cluster of abandoned buildings. The area looks unsafe." Angelina nodded. "Miss Jolie," the guard hesitated, glancing around to ensure no one was eavesdropping. "This isn't a good idea. Let us handle it." "I'm coming," Angelina said firmly. "Lead the way." The festive hum of the market faded as Angelina followed her guards through the winding alleys on its outskirts. The snow-covered ground was uneven, the air heavy with dampness and the faint smell of decay. The cheerful lights of the market were replaced by dim, flickering bulbs and the shadows of towering buildings. They reached a narrow alley where Angelina spotted Sophia and the man from earlier. The man stood over the girl, gesturing angrily as Sophia huddled against the wall, clutching her basket. Angelina's chest tightened at the sight. "Wait here," Angelina instructed her assistant, then motioned for her bodyguards to stay close. She stepped forward, her footsteps echoing in the stillness. "Excuse me," she called out, her voice carrying authority. The man turned sharply, his face twisting into a sneer. "You again?" he growled. "I told you to mind your business." Angelina approached slowly, her coat billowing behind her. "I can't do that," she said calmly. "Sophia doesn't look safe with you. I want to know what's going on." The man took a step toward her, his stance aggressive. "Listen, lady, you think you can just waltz in here with your fancy coat and your guards and tell me what to do? I think I can make sure Sophia is safe," Angelina said evenly, not flinching. Sophia looked up, her wide eyes darting between Angelina and the man. Her small frame shook as she gripped the edge of her basket. "This girl is with me," the man snapped. "She's mine to take care of. She owes me." "Owes you?" Angelina repeated, her voice sharpening. "What kind of man says a child owes him?" The man's face darkened. "You wouldn't understand. Just walk away. This isn't your problem." Angelina stepped closer, her bodyguards flanking her. "It is my problem now," she said, her voice cold as ice. "You don't scare me." The man's bravado faltered. He spat on the ground and grabbed Sophia's arm, pulling her roughly. "We're leaving." "No," Angelina said, her voice like steel. "Let her go." One of her guards stepped forward, his hand resting on the earpiece in his ear. "Sir, Let go of the girl. Right now. The man's grip on Sophia tightened for a moment before he released her with a shove. Sophia stumbled but quickly ran to Angelina. Clutching the actress's coat, Angelina knelt to her level, placing a protective arm around her. It's okay, Sophia, she whispered. You're safe now. The man glared at them, his fists clenching and unclenching. You don't know what you're getting into. He hissed. This goes beyond me. You don't want to mess with the people I work for. Try me, Angelina said, standing to her full height. Her bodyguards closed ranks around her, their presence a silent warning. The man muttered curses under his breath before turning and disappearing into the shadows. As the tension eased, Angelina turned her attention back to Sophia. The girl clung to her, trembling but no longer trying to hide her tears. Are you okay? Angelina asked gently, brushing a strand of hair from Sophia's face. Sophia nodded weakly, but her tear-streaked cheeks told a different story. Where's your mother, Sophia? Angelina asked. Is she nearby? Sophia hesitated, her small fingers clutching the fabric of Angelina's coat. She's sick, she whispered. She stays in a tent near the river. Desmond, he gives her things to make her feel better. Angelina's stomach sank. Things? Do you mean drugs? Sophia nodded slowly, her gaze dropping to the ground. He says we owe him because he helps us. He makes me sell cakes and candies so we can pay him back. Anger flared in Angelina's chest, but she forced herself to stay calm. Sophia, listen to me, she said softly. None of this is your fault. Do you understand? You and your mother don't owe him anything. What he's doing is wrong. And I'm going to help you. Sophia's eyes filled with uncertainty. But what about Mama? She asked, her voice trembling. I can't leave her. You won't have to, Angelina assured her. I'll make sure she gets the help she needs too. Sophia's small face crumpled with relief, and she threw her arms around Angelina. Thank you, she whispered. Angelina wasted no time. As they returned to the market, she called her assistant and gave clear instructions. Contact a private rehabilitation center, she said. Tell them we have a patient who needs immediate care. And call child services. I want someone ready to meet us at the hospital. Her assistant nodded, her earlier hesitation replaced with determination. Right away, Angelina knelt beside Sophia, who was sitting quietly on a bench, still clutching her basket. Sophia, we're going to take you and your mom somewhere safe, she said, but I need to know where she is. Can you take me to her? Sophia hesitated, then nodded. She's by the river, she said softly, but it's far. Angelina stood, her resolve hardening. We'll get there. The winter air grew colder as the group made their way toward the Seine River. Guided by Sophia's small hand pointing out the route, the bustling lights and sounds of the Christmas market faded behind them, replaced by the quiet hum of the city at night. Angelina, now clad in a scarf and gloves handed to her by one of her bodyguards, walked beside Sophia, their pace brisk but steady. Sophia remained silent, her steps hesitant. Every few moments, she glanced nervously over her shoulder. Angelina noticed and knelt briefly to meet her eyes. You don't need to be afraid anymore, Angelina reassured her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. I promise, we'll protect you and your mother. Sophia hesitated, then nodded. It's not far now, she said quietly. As they approached the river, the surroundings grew bleaker. The festive decorations of central Paris gave way to darkened streets, where the only light came from flickering street lamps. The Seine stretched before them, its dark waters reflecting faint glimmers of moonlight. There, Sophia said, pointing toward a cluster of makeshift tents near the riverbank. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Angelina's heart sank as she took in the scene. The tents, pieced together from tarps and blankets, provided little protection against the biting cold. It was a stark reminder of the harsh realities faced by those on the margins of society. Sophia led the group to one of the tents, her small hand pulling back the flap. Inside, a frail woman lay on a thin mattress, her eyes half closed and unfocused. The air was heavy with the sharp, acrid scent of unwashed fabric and something more sinister, an underlying chemical odor that made Angelina's stomach turn. Mama, Sophia whispered, kneeling beside the woman. She shook her gently. Mama, wake up. I brought someone to help us. The woman stirred but didn't fully wake. Her movements were sluggish, her arms limp as Sophia tried to lift her. Angelina knelt beside them, her gaze softening as she took in the woman's pale face and hollow cheeks. She placed a hand on Sophia's shoulder. Sophia, she needs medical attention. We'll take her to a hospital. Okay? Sophia's eyes filled with tears. Will they let me stay with her? Angelina nodded. We'll make sure you're together. Turning to her bodyguards, Angelina gave firm instructions. Call an ambulance. Tell them it's urgent. One of the guards nodded and stepped aside to make the call. The other guard kept watch, his eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of Desmond or his associates. Sophia clung to her mother, her small frame trembling. She's been sick for so long. She murmured, I don't want to lose her. You won't, Angelina said softly, her voice steady. We're going to take care of her. As they waited for the ambulance, the sound of footsteps crunching on snow broke the silence. Angelina and her team turned, their senses on high alert. From the shadows emerged Desmond, his face twisted in anger. Well, isn't this a touching scene? He sneered, his voice slurring slightly. He staggered forward, clearly emboldened by alcohol. You think you can just take what's mine? Sophia froze, her grip on her mother tightening. Angelina immediately stepped between them, her bodyguards closing ranks around her. She's not yours, Angelina said firmly, her voice calm but unyielding. Sophia and her mother are free from you now. Desmond let out a harsh laugh. Free? You have no idea how deep this goes. Lady, you think I'm the worst of it? I work for people who don't care about your money or your fame. Walk away now, and maybe they'll forget your name. Angelina didn't flinch. You're not scaring me, she said, her voice cold. The authorities are on their way. It's over. Desmond's eyes darkened, and he lunged toward Angelina. Before he could get close, one of her bodyguards intercepted him, pinning him to the ground with practiced efficiency. Desmond struggled, cursing, but the guard held firm. I told you, it's over, Angelina said, stepping closer. Her voice carried a quiet strength that silenced even Desmond's defiance. Moments later, the wail of an ambulance and police sirens filled the air. Blue and red lights reflected off the snow as officers and paramedics arrived on the scene. The paramedics rushed to Sophia's mother, carefully lifting her onto a stretcher. Sophia clung to her mother's side, her small hand clutching her mother's frail fingers. The police took Desmond into custody, his protests drowned out by the commotion. One officer approached Angelina, his expression a mix of professionalism and curiosity. Miss Jolie, he said, recognizing her, can you explain what happened here? Angelina quickly outlined the situation, her tone measured but urgent. She emphasized the need to investigate further, suspecting that Desmond was part of a larger network exploiting vulnerable families. The officer nodded. We'll take him in and follow up on this. Thank you for intervening. As the ambulance doors closed, Sophia looked out at Angelina, her eyes wide with uncertainty. Angelina stepped forward and placed a reassuring hand on Sophia's shoulder. You're going with your mother, she said gently. I'll meet you at the hospital. You're not alone anymore. Sophia nodded, her lip trembling. Thank you, she whispered, her voice breaking. Angelina watched as the ambulance drove away, her chest heavy with both relief and determination. She turned to her assistant and bodyguards. We're going to make sure they're safe, she said firmly. Contact my team. I want the best doctors, the best lawyers, and a secure place for them to recover. Her assistant nodded, already typing on her phone. I'll get everything arranged. As the ambulance lights disappeared into the distance, Angelina took a deep breath. The night wasn't over, but for the first time, she felt a flicker of hope. Sophia and her mother were no longer alone. They had a chance, a real chance, at a new beginning. The hospital waiting room was quiet except for the occasional murmur of nurses and the distant beeping of machines. Angelina sat beside Sophia, who clutched a cup of warm tea given to her by one of the nurses. Her small hands trembled slightly, but there was a visible relief in her posture now that her mother was being treated in a nearby room. Is Mama going to be okay? Sophia asked softly, her wide eyes fixed on Angelina. Angelina reached over, gently holding Sophia's hand. The doctors are doing everything they can, she said, and once she's feeling better, I'll make sure she gets all the help she needs. Sophia nodded but didn't say anything. She sipped her tea, her gaze drifting to the floor. Angelina noticed the way her shoulders hunched, the years of fear and responsibility weighing heavily on her small frame. Do you have any family other than your mother? Angelina asked gently. Sophia shook her head. It's just me and Mama. She said, it's always been just us. Angelina's heart ached at the quiet resilience in Sophia's voice. She decided to shift the conversation to something lighter. What do you want to do when you grow up? Sophia, do you have any dreams? Sophia looked up, her expression thoughtful. I want to be a teacher, she said after a moment. So I can help kids like me. Kids who don't have much. Angelina smiled, her admiration for the girl growing. That's a beautiful dream, she said, and I'll do everything I can to help you make it come true. As the hours passed, Angelina's assistant arrived at the hospital with an update. The police have Desmond in custody, she said quietly. They're interrogating him now, but it's clear he's part of a larger operation. The local authorities are working on identifying the rest of the network. Angelina nodded, her mind already racing with plans. I want to be involved, she said. This isn't just about Sophia. There are other children out there who need help. Her assistant hesitated. Miss Jolie, this could get dangerous. These people aren't just petty criminals. They're part of an organized network. I understand the risks, Angelina said firmly. But if we don't act, who will? Her assistant sighed but nodded. I'll coordinate with the lawyers and law enforcement, she said. We'll make sure everything is handled discreetly. The next morning, Angelina met with the lead detective handling the case. He was a seasoned officer. His demeanor professional but warm. We've gathered enough evidence to press charges against Desmond, he explained, but we believe he's just a middleman. The real leaders of this operation are harder to track. Then we start with him, Angelina said. Put pressure on him to reveal who's behind this. The detective nodded. We're already working on it. But it's going to take time. In the meantime, we'll make sure Sophia and her mother are protected. Angelina felt a surge of gratitude. Thank you, she said. They've been through enough. Over the next few days, Angelina worked tirelessly to ensure Sophia and her mother had the support they needed. Her team secured a place for Sophia's mother at a private rehabilitation center, where she could receive treatment for her addiction and counseling to address the trauma she had endured. Sophia was placed in temporary housing with one of Angelina's trusted friends, Laura, who had experience working with children in vulnerable situations. Laura's apartment was cozy and filled with books and colorful decorations, a stark contrast to the harsh environment Sophia had known. When Angelina visited, Sophia greeted her with a shy smile. Laura let me decorate the tree, she said, pointing to a small Christmas tree in the corner. It's beautiful, Angelina said, kneeling beside her. You did a wonderful job. Sophia beamed, a hint of joy breaking through her usual cautious demeanor. For the first time, she seemed to believe that things might get better. While Sophia and her mother began to heal, Angelina focused her efforts on dismantling the exploitation network Desmond had been part of. She worked closely with local law enforcement, using her platform to draw attention to the issue without compromising the investigation. Through Desmond's testimony, the authorities uncovered a web of individuals involved in trafficking and exploiting vulnerable families. Angelina coordinated with international organizations to ensure the network's reach was limited and that survivors received the help they needed. This isn't just about putting people in jail, Angelina said during a meeting with law enforcement and humanitarian workers. It's about breaking the cycle. We need to provide these children and families with resources, education, and support so they can rebuild their lives. As weeks turned into months, Sophia blossomed in her new environment. She started attending school, where she quickly became a favorite among her classmates and teachers. Her natural curiosity and kindness shone through. Despite the challenges she had faced, Angelina visited regularly, bringing books and small gifts for Sophia. One day, she brought a journal and a set of colored pens. This is for you, Angelina said, handing the items to Sophia. You can write or draw anything you want. It's your space. Sophia hugged the journal tightly. Thank you, she said. I'll write about the good things. Angelina smiled. That's a wonderful idea. And remember, you're stronger than you think. You've already come so far. On Christmas Eve, nearly a year after their first encounter, Angelina invited Sophia and her mother to a small gathering at her home. The once frail woman was now healthy and radiant, her eyes filled with gratitude. As they gathered around the tree, Sophia handed Angelina a small wrapped gift. This is for you, she said shyly. Angelina unwrapped the gift to find a hand-drawn picture of the two of them at the Christmas market, with the words "Thank you for saving us" written at the bottom. Tears welled in Angelina's eyes as she hugged Sophia. "You've given me the greatest gift of all," she said, "seeing you happy and safe." As they shared stories and laughter, Angelina reflected on the journey that had brought them here. It had been a year of challenges and triumphs, but the joy in Sophia's eyes made it all worth it. In that moment, surrounded by love and hope, Angelina knew she had found the true meaning of Christmas, not in the glittering galas or grand gestures, but in the quiet, transformative power of compassion and connection.